My friend Omari, the bass player, has a couple of really fine basses. This Warwick is one of them. I set this one up before I did his Fender jazz bass. This beautiful bass had a little mishap. This little dish out here happened when Omari was on stage. I think it was in a stand and it got knocked over and it banged up against something. It's unplayable. This is a big enough gouge and you get a splinter trying to play this. So I believe this fingerboard is Wenge. It's spelled W-E-N-G-E. And I have a couple samples of Wenge here that I will try to match in, do a slight excavation and do a replacement, hopefully get it back good as new. The goal here is to use the Dremel tool to carve out a uniform shape so I can make a plug that'll go back in. You want to make sure you get the dimensions right. So measure twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then cut. Okay, that looks like a good height. This will take a little more material off. So measuring for the plug is critical. I've got about 12.5 millimeters, a little over 12.5 millimeters length, and about 5 millimeters wide. Maybe 6 millimeters. And then the depth is on the order of, let's see, I've got a depth of about a little less than 3 millimeters. So we'll make our plug accordingly, shape it to fit. These little plugs are hard to keep track of. But here we go. So now it's a matter of just sanding this down, getting the right form. You have to get the shape right. It's a pretty good match already. Based on a couple of different recommendations, I'm going to use Type Bond 3 for this debonding operation. And when the time comes to blend in some color around the seam, I'm going to do that in a separate operation where I mix in some of the dust that I created when I was sanding the little insert, the little plug here. So I'm overbuilding. I assume that's what it's called in construction and underlay. I know in CAD, when we develop a substrate for a model, call it overbuilding when we do this. In other words, the finished part is going to jut out upwards and also out to the side. Pretty close match when viewed from the fingerboard, perpendicular to the fingerboard, and also in elevation view. So after this is cured, the goal is to get everything flush. Now, I want to clamp it, but I may need to settle for doing an elastomer. I don't think I'm going to be able to clamp that too well. So this is where having this here, it's going to protect the strings. Do you know the thing that kills rubber bands is ozone? It's a natural abundance of ozone in the air we breathe. I should rephrase that. There's a trace amount of ozone naturally occurring. Basically, oxygen gets photolyzed by the sun. You get some atomic oxygen, reacts with oxygen molecules, O2 molecules, you form ozone, O3 molecules. What does that have to do with fixing a base, you say? Everything ties together. So ozone destroys rubber bands. Now, if I can just get this rubber band to come around the other side of this neck and pop it back off on there, I am relatively happy. That is going to be my clamp. Had this rubber band been exposed to too much ozone, this might not have worked. So I have a nice secure plug in place on the neck, and what I'm doing is working the plug down just by filing making sure I don't hit the native material part of the fingerboard. I'm just trying to take down this elevated plug. Follow the shape. It's looking good. Well, the plug has worked out pretty well. There's a little witness mark around the perimeter that is just a little bit lighter in color. The grain and everything blends in pretty well. I'll show you a couple of stills that'll give you a better feel for that. So what I intend to do is come in here with some of the dust that was created when I was sanding the plug down. So I've got some dust in here. Pick up the blonde pieces and use just the dark stuff. And what I can do is mix that in with some Titebond and squish it into there, let that cure, and then come in and do another sand and see how that looks. So that went pretty well. Filed down the plug, did a little sanding with some 400, 600, and 1500 grit sandpaper. Barely tell that there's a plug there at all. And then just a little bit of boiled linseed oil to help out this thirsty fingerboard. And I'd say we're good to go. Never even had to pull the strings all the way off.